I have been interested in rockets my entire life. I mean, starting with models that I built from 80-year-old dynamite and pipe that I found in the back of the barn when I was 10, and I've been building them ever since. Well, I've been fortunate in my career to always serve important missions, national security, exploration, and that's always been the most important thing to me. It's a privilege to be a part of the security of our great nation and its role in the world in terms of leadership and creating democracy. I mean, this country has done more for the state of human dignity than I think any institution in history. And to play even a small part in supporting our great country and the amazing discoveries, especially about our solar system in the last 10 years or so, it's a privilege. It's amazing that they pay us to do this kind of work. You know, the spacecraft that we put up literally touch everyone's life every single day. You know, we used our GPS to get to the hotel today, made that happen. Checked the weather before I left Colorado to make sure it was going to be nice. That was part of what we did. And I do, like many people, have friends and loved ones overseas in harm's way, and we know that we are helping to keep them safe. And everyone at ULA feels that commitment to our mission, which makes it just a wonderful place to work and amazing colleagues to work with. I honestly had no interest in management when I came out of college. I just wanted to be a rocket scientist. That's what I did for the first 10 years. But I was working on a big program, middle of the Cold War, pretty important project. And the first time we launched this big rocket, it did a giant pinwheel and exploded. And I ended up leading an ad hoc team of people figuring that out and coming up with fixes for it. And that was really my first brush with leadership. And it changed how I looked at that and how I looked at management from that point forward. Well, I learned a couple things. I mean, first of all, everybody's a volunteer. Even if they work for you on the org chart, they're really still just a volunteer. And as important as technology is and facilities and all of those other things, the things we think about in a rocket company or a technology company, it's really nothing without people. And their dedication and their commitment to getting it done means you have to inspire them. So your real role as a leader is to communicate to that team where it is we're trying to go, paint that vision of what it's going to look like when we get there, have their commitment to do it so that they want to get it done. You can't make people do anything. Even if you can make them come to work, you can't make them be engaged. Well, when you're facing a big challenge, there's a couple of things that are really, really important as the leader. The first thing is to engage your team and make sure you're coming up with the right direction, and then to have everybody's commitment to really row that boat in that direction. Now, I encourage people to speak up and to have an almost academic environment when we're sorting through a difficult problem, making a hard decision. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. It isn't required that everybody says the same thing and everybody agrees on every fine point, but once we're all done and we decide, then you need everybody to sort of pitch in and make it happen. And the leader's job is to create that environment where they can do that. Well, it's easy to be a leader when you're winning and everything's going well. It's a real challenge when times are tough. That's when teamwork is really put to the test, where everyone really has to have the same goal and the same level of commitment to do it. And the leader's role is to kind of pick them back up and coach them and help them be determined, because determination to reach those goals can overcome almost anything. It was pretty early in my career, and I wasn't, a manager yet, an official manager, and I was in sort of that period in between after that first one I told you about, where I just kind of went from giant problem to giant problem. I had a day job, but I would get drafted every time there was a crisis. And this particular one was up in our laboratory, developing a a system that would hold at risk a really bad guy who needed to be told he wasn't invulnerable. And it was a tiny group of scientists. They were working day or night. We went about 9 months, I think, without a single day off. And we thought we finally had this thing working. And we were testing it in a centrifuge at about 2 o'clock in the morning, because that's the kind of project it was. And it caught fire and burned up. And it was literally the last test we were going to run before we packaged it and delivered it. And so everyone was just crushed. We had no idea what went wrong. Everybody went home kind of in a state like that. And I kind of woke up, just a couple hours later, and I came in, I had an idea, and I'm researching it in our technical library and thought I knew what it was. Went into the lab, and the team was all there already, and they were putting together a test because they had kind of the same idea and were off to recreate it. And we did, and by that afternoon we were all the way back in the saddle and had this thing licked. And what I learned from that is the power of motivation and how important the people are. It wasn't our labs, it wasn't the thing we were building, it was their commitment and their willingness to just kind of buckle down and figure this out and not give up. And so not giving up, that determination, sometimes is what it takes. I think it starts with just really loving space and having a passion for it and being willing to work very hard and to be attracted to the tough problems in your organization. So, a lot of people, when there's something not going well or there's a big struggle happening, will kind of move away from it. And what you really need are people who will look at that, and if they think, oh, I can help, will run towards that fire and volunteer. And if you do that, you're going to make a bigger difference than if you don't. And you're going to be noticed doing it. And I think that's really the best way to kind of get into the business, learn a lot fast, and to really do something with your career. Yes, it's a very exciting time to be in space. And interestingly enough, I think of two very important sort of epochs that we're standing right in front of. And one of them is a very optimistic, bright future where we are returning to the moon and understanding that there are tremendous natural resources both there and within easy reach of there that we can begin to develop and really change our future as humanity. There is an abundance there that just defies imagination. It can change everything about life here on Earth, and the building blocks for that are going into place now. At the same time, this peaceful but sort of ultimate high ground of space is now challenged, and we have entered into an era where it's now considered a warfighting domain. The last time we had a new warfighting domain was over 100 years ago. That's an important moment in history. It is one that we cannot afford to get wrong if we're going to continue to maintain the peace around the globe and to lead the kinds of values for human dignity and for freedom that we think are important here. That is all under threat, and the country will have to respond correctly and aggressively to deal with that. So two very different vectors, both happening at the same time.